we've all been waiting for it. Better. What's up guys, I'm Dimitri, and behind me is the new coolermaster H500P Mesh. They have made some changes for better airflow, better overall functionality and paneling, and now it comes in this beautiful white. Let's check it out right after this. Finally, an ultra slim body keyboard with mechanical red or blue switches, designed and perfected for work and play. The Tesoro Gram XS evolved to fit right in. Check it out below. Alright, so first make sure to check out our original H500P review to get a basic understanding of what this case is all about. And so I'm happy to say the price has not changed. It's still $149, which is nice. We get these upgrades without the price premium. So now let's talk about everything that has changed. First is the new color. Now it's matte white that is uniform across materials. So the interior metal pieces are the same color as the exterior plastic ones. Now I actually prefer the metallic coating on the original. It just looks better to me. The white, I don't mind it, but you have to approach it with a particular hardware color coordination in mind. But the white frame is mixed with some black accents like PCI brackets, thumb screws, the ventilation area, and I'm actually quite happy that all of the fans are now white too. This does help to hide them a bit inside, and if you're illuminating the interior, the light spill would complement this color choice. The rear side panel is also fully white with white paneling behind the motherboard tray, and this definitely opens some cool opportunities to showcase cable management and routing those individual channels. And the only visually awkward element on the exterior is that blackout perimeter around the glass. It's way too thick, especially because we have so much white around it, and potentially if it was thinner or maybe even white, it would have looked better. Next are all the paneling improvements. So first, the front panel is now reinforced with a top clip, so it's no longer loose. It requires you to press in to disconnect it. It also now is entirely covered in this mesh material for better airflow, thus the name, with a filter built in. This is clearly the result of a massive disappointment of the original design, so this is how it should have been released in the first place, I think. Now the mesh design helps to outline each of the 200mm fans with these darker shapes. It's nice, but if you were to replace them for 3 smaller fans, then the front panel would look kind of awkward being split in the middle like that. Also, it's great to see they've removed the stickers from the fans just to avoid any, inconsistencies if the sticker is not perfectly centered, because then the fan blade would look to be wobbling, which was present on the original enclosure. The side panels are still hinged and have this convenient 2-step mounting procedure, but the tempered glass mount has been tightened, so it's not as loose as on the original. The top panel remains the same with this acrylic, but now there's a thumb screw holding it in place, so it doesn't simply pop out during assembly. Now I wish the top panel would also receive the mesh treatment, simply because the fans are so close to the top that the airflow would simply bounce back into the case unless you're using really low RPM fans. And also we have this weird exterior inconsistency. We have glass, we have mesh, and we have this acrylic panel, and it's almost like coolermaster is undecided on how they want the H500P to look. The I/O is still the same with 4 USB ports, but now they've added this lighting hub. It's for lighting control, so you can either connect the 4-pin RGB connector to your motherboard, as was with the original, and have software control, or now you can route the reset switch into this hub and control the lighting switch that way. The hub also has a button, so you can cycle colors through that and preserve the reset switch for the motherboard. Now the hub is kind of like a nice inclusion, so you have 2 options for color control, but we're told for the next iteration of the H500P, they'll build the hub into the front I/O, so you don't have to deal with additional cable work. And so while I appreciate these upgrades are coming out and they're better for the consumer without increasing the price point, I wish that coolermaster would simply just sit down and do all these upgrades all at once, so that the consumer can receive the final and finished and refined product quicker, instead of having this 3 iterations of the same case that is receiving these incremental upgrades over an entire year. Moving on to the inside, the only difference is the new power supply bracket, and I'm so happy that it's been added, allowing you to install your unit from the rear without removing the shroud first, which was super inconvenient on the original. As for the rest of the internals, everything is the same. It kind of sucks they have not modified the front shroud section, because in the second position, which clears up room in the front for a radiator, you still need to remove the closest SSD caddy, because otherwise the shroud will not slide back. As for the paneling behind the motherboard tray, it's still not thick enough to properly accommodate entrance of thicker cables from the side, and while you can work around this panel, it just could be so much better to actually hide your cables and be used to secure them as well. And I don't even want to install the side panel because I love the look of this, like open, seeing the cables and seeing the paneling, but you can see it's not even shaped properly to hide the needed sections. Furthermore, this interior plate is a bit useless because it cannot house a reservoir and there are no cable tie points on the back of it. It's simply here to cover this opening, which is meant for cables, but nothing around it caters to its intended purpose. And finally, I wanted to see the temperature differences in this new mesh versus the original, which I no longer have. So I had to use some other creative means to cover up the front section with tape so that we could mimic this sort of restricted front airflow from the original model. And so here are the results. The idle temperatures are 2 to 3 degrees Celsius cooler for the new mesh revision. While firing up the load scenario, we see a substantial reduction in CPU temperature while also giving us a cooler GPU with just a slightly higher core clock. And because the front panel is now more open, it is also slightly louder. All right, so for the conclusion, I want to say that the mesh revision is super necessary because I feel like Cooler Master lost a lot of credibility with the original release, saying it's like high airflow or it's like trying to follow in the footsteps of the high airflow series while not exactly delivering to that airflow expectations with that super restrictive front paneling. But now that's been changed along with a few other things, so I feel like these upgrades are coming in and they're appreciated. However, it still somehow does not feel enough because refinements and upgrades are still underway, and I'm excited to see what type of new features we'll see on the metallic version, if any, but it feels like they're still constantly improving things while you are kind of stuck with whatever you get. And if you have any ideas on what would make the H500P your dream airflow case, let me know in the comments below. Let's talk about this so Cooler Master can read that feedback and potentially integrate that into their next case release so that we don't have to be constantly asking them for features. They'll all be already included at launch, hopefully. We'll see. I'm Dmitry, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.